Okay, so let's get started. So, welcome you all in this special online chat on Agile Business Analysis. So, today we have two guests, Dinap and Ipsita. Both of them are product owners and business analysts and having more than 10 years of experience. Before we start talking to them, let me tell you some data about Agile and Agile Business Analysis. Very quick, 1 or 2 minutes I'll spend on that, and then we'll start discussing. So, before we start the discussion with these two gentlemen and Ipsita, uh, let me tell you that there is a state of agile survey which is conducted every year, and in the latest report, which is 2020 report, it says that 95% of the people who are surveyed, they are saying that their organizations are using some form of agile development methodologies. Another piece of information is about how many people are there in agile business analysis. So IIBA, which is a Canada-based body, they had a salary survey last year. According to that, 70% of the business analysts, they practice agile approaches, which is fairly large number in terms of how many people are working on agile business analysis. Final piece of information is that it's growing at a very rapid pace. So from 50% in 2017 to more than 71% in 2019, which is a growth of more than 40%. So it is in line with what State of Agile surveys show, that the number of projects which are getting done using agile approaches is increasing quite rapidly. And if you look at all the new projects, most of them are now following agile approaches. So this is just small piece of information which I wanted to share with you. Now let's uh, start our discussion with Ipsita and Dinap. So Ipsita and Dinap, if you can, yeah, hi. Hi,
Hello.
Dinap.
Hi, Abhishek. Hi. Good evening.
Hi. Great. So there is one. All right. So let's first start as we generally start. Tell us about yourself. So, Dinap, if you can just start by just giving us what do you do and what is your current role, and when did you start your agile business analysis journey?
So I've been working as a business analyst from 10 plus years now, and I got into Agile, part of it maybe back in I think around 2014. So I've been like working with Agile or uh, experiencing Agile from different models as well from the past 6 odd years. Earlier, I was working with waterfall models or hybrid waterfall, but now I've been working with pure agile methodologies from the past 6 odd years. And currently, I'm working with a local bank in Singapore, and which is one of the largest local banks in Singapore. And we are working in agile methodology as well. So, yep, I think that's more or less about me. So, in all, I have like about 13 years of experience as a business analyst. And I have worked with a lot of large financial services organizations as well. Plus, in all, I've worked with some mobile app development companies which were experiencing around ERP and CRM systems as well. So that's about me.
Okay, great. So now coming to you. Okay, thank you. Sorry for interruption. Yeah, Ipsita. So now coming to you. What about you?
Sure. So I have around 10 plus years of experience as a business analyst. And of course, initially, as the NAP said, I think we all have gone through this waterfall model at some point in time. And then around 2012 is when, I joined a pretty small company the company is based in UK basically, in a sort of a startup. So there when we got into the agile completely. So 2012 is when I started my agile journey, tried to get into agile and also in a company wide get that agile mindset amongst all of our employees and the team. And so that time it was a pure, getting into the agile mode as a business analyst. And recently, since past 5 years, I'm into a core product owner role. That's because probably one of the main reason is I'm working for a product company. So of course, the product owner role becomes pretty much predominant in that case. So it's been around 5 to 6 years that I am into complete product ownership now. And yeah, that's it about me.
Okay, great. So both Dinap and Ipsita, I think you have fairly good experience in agile world. So let's start by trying to understand what is the agile business analysis role. This is something which originally was not envisaged in agile approaches. So there is a product owner role, which is fairly popular. So how do you describe the role of a business analyst in agile environment? Maybe Dinap, you can start first.
Sure. So, for agile business analyst earlier, uh, so earlier what used to happen, basically the product owner or the product manager, he was the one who was giving all the requirements directly to the team, and he was the one who was creating all the user stories and defining those particular user stories to the team as well. But over a period of time, I think everybody realized that the bridge or some but the bridge basically between the technical team and the business requirements or the translation was not happening properly, and there were some requirements which were being lost as well. Also, there are some scenarios where we understand, maybe because this is a techno-functional kind of a role. So there are some requirements which might take much longer to develop, or which are technically not feasible. The product has some certain limitations, or the technology has certain limitations. So there needs to be a key person in between who can actually translate those particular requirements, understand the value proposition where the which is being brought to the business as well, and then be facilitate the communication between the development team as and the product management team as well. So I think that is the core responsibilities of a agile business analyst. So facilitating,
Okay.
and then again the user story part is again it is of utmost importance.
Okay, Ipsita, would like to add anything here?
Right. So just adding to what Adinat just said. So of course, when we compared with waterfall, probably a role of a typical business analyst was always confined into requirement gathering. Once the BRDs are signed off and it is passed to the development team, probably the development phase used to take place, and then again the business analyst was used to interfere during the UAT phase. However, in Agile Business Analyst, it is completely, throughout the process of development, from the discovery phase to the delivery phase is where the Agile Business Analyst has to be involved into. Because, of course, as the term says, it is agile, so requirements keep changing, and that's the reason the Agile Business Analyst has to be a part of the complete delivery mode as well. And also, what Dinap said. So acting as a bridge in between the stakeholders, between the business as well as the team. That is something very important that probably every business analyst in the agile world has to deal with at this point.
Right. So two things are very coming out what you're saying. One is that business analysts in agile approaches or agile projects work with the product owner to support him on the requirements and requirements management. But at the same time, unlike waterfall methodologies, agile business analyst role is more kind of throughout the project rather than just at the initial stages and the end the UAT stage.
Exactly.
Yes. So another question which is in everybody's mind is that agile people say agile requires a mindset change in the organization as well as in the team. So what exactly is that? What are we talking about here? Ipsita, if you can start on this.
Right. So basically, mindset change is very important in terms of agile. In the sense, like it has to be a fearless environment, because if you go by what agile says, it's like everyone is empowered to give their suggestions. Everyone is empowered to talk freely within the team. So the typical hierarchy that we have in the Indian companies, you have a delivery manager, you have a project manager. Of course, that is probably required to run the business. But when you talk about agile, it is more like the team getting empowered. They would pick up the stories, from their, basic experience and their whatever their skill set is. So they have the freedom to get work for them rather than somebody getting assigning the work to them. So that again is something that the change in mindset that comes into picture, because I think most of us are all used to being work assigned to us than we ourselves would pick up the work. So that is one thing that is very much required. And also, one more thing is like, since the requirement keeps changing, so since it is agile, there is no definite set of requirements. So you probably, when you work in a project, you will not have a 6 months long a big bang release after the 6 months. So since it's agile, probably, and of course in the CI/CD culture these days, the releases goes on every week. Probably multiple releases are going on every day in typical product companies. So that has to, to achieve this, you have to have the agile mindset in place, where people are fast enough, they know what needs to be done, and they just finish the work on time rather than waiting for somebody to be told to them that, okay, that's what you need to do.
Yeah, valid points. Dinap, would you like to add something here?
I think, yeah. Just to add one more point, as Shita rightly mentioned, that earlier the work was being assigned by the project manager or the delivery manager, but now teams are much more empowered and they are picking up their user stories. I think one very important thing which has changed with Agile is the sense of ownership which someone actually feels that, okay, this is my particular requirement and I have the ownership to actually deliver this particular requirement after the end of the sprint. And then we have a lot of meetings in Agile where the person stand-up meetings are there every single day. So if there is any blocker or if any impediment, then the developer can actually inform the product manager or the product owner that, okay, this is the impediment I am facing and I'm not being able to deliver, and this is the blocker, and I might not be able to deliver. Rather than having after maybe a month or after 2 months of development cycle that you are saying that, okay, this is something which cannot be met. So that particular the communication barrier is not there along with the sense of ownership. So you have that ownership that, okay, you need to get this done and you need to get this done with the right quality and the right timeline as well. So I think that changes the whole mindset and how people are approaching their particular user stories and the overall responsibility of work allocated.
Right. So essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the team has to be enabled. One of the mindset changes, the team has to be enabled instead of being managed by a manager enough or competent enough, or the team has to be structured in such a way that they can take care of what is to be done in the project.
Correct.
Okay, great. So that definitely requires a serious mindset change, right? So the next question is, uh, as somebody who is working in agile project, mostly working as a product owner and business analyst, what do you think the most challenging part of it?
Okay. So I think first of all, as we are discussing about the mindset, so first of all, so it depends on what is the maturity level of the organization with respect to agile. So in a fairly mature organization, the responsibilities of agile business analyst are fairly clear. That, okay, agile business analyst is responsible for XYZ number of tasks, like creating user stories, explaining the requirements to the development team, liaising with the product management team. So they are very clear. For a new company which is adopting agile, I think one of the major challenges which agile business analyst faces is that people are not clear what this agile business analyst is supposed to do. Is he supposed to work like a project manager? Is he supposed to look after people's leaves, or they are supposed to report to them? What is the difference between his responsibilities and a scrum master responsibilities? People get confused very easily because it's a fairly new setup. I think that's one of the important points. Then then the second point which I feel is sometimes the development team is not in the they are not satisfied with the user stories created, because user stories are very short. They are supposed to be very short and very precise, and they are supposed to be broken down into certain particular functionalities. And we cannot create a full user story of like it's supposed to be a set of user stories for one particular functionality. So the development team, sometimes they are not able to understand, or they are not satisfied with the user stories, because they are not looking at the entire picture in one set. The third thing, I think, which is because most of the companies, there is no documented agile process, which I've experienced. So the companies, okay, define that, okay, we are going to have a stand-up meeting, we are going to have this is the process. But then again, if we talk about storyboarding, or we talk about story point allocation, then again it is all based on the experience, whatever complexities you have faced. So there is no documented process. I think that is another challenge which is there, which I personally faced.
Right, right. Ipsira, would you like to add anything here?
Right, just to add on, because I felt that the points that Dinap mentioned were really valid. And just to add on with a few couple of things is one challenge that I feel is, of course, on a typical business analyst scenario, is stakeholder management. That is a very common problem, because when you are dealing with multiple stakeholders, that is a big challenge to prioritize, as you know, who is the primary stakeholder and which are the requirements probably you would prioritize with. So that is one thing. The other challenge probably, that is again very common thing, which is change in requirements. So it might happen that probably you've started, the team has started working on a particular functionality or a feature, and then because of certain changes in market conditions, or probably certain impulsion of any regulatory things, for example a data protection rule that might have come in, for which you'll have to just stop all the work that you're doing and just pick in that particular work. So that change in requirements and stakeholder management, I feel, are two other things. And of course, sometimes collaboration also is a problem, because when you are collaborating, with multiple stakeholders, it becomes, you have to do, as a business analyst, you have to do it in a very tactical way to ensure that you get the right requirements from the right stakeholders. So that again becomes at times a bit challenging part of the work.
Correct. So basically, in Agile, because of, I think, the maturity level of organizations is not very high, so challenges are quite a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the very important thing about business analysts is, unlike project managers who have all the rights to do take a lot of decisions, business analysts have a lot of responsibilities without any rights, literally speaking. So that in itself is a challenging role as a business analyst. So now another thing which is related to agile projects, which everybody says, changes are welcome, and that's one of the agile principles. So, to what extent changes are welcome? I mean, is there any limitation in terms of where do we stop and how do we stop?
I think, as far as you know that you have the MVP in place, and the changes would definitely come in terms of requirements, of course. So as I just mentioned, so there can be a change that probably is something that is completely unavoidable. Probably a data protection act has come up, and that has to be launched within an X amount of days. So that is where probably you have to prioritize that work on a high scale and get it done. But however, other changes that might come, so as far as the MVP is not getting affected, I think we are good to go. So you always need to ensure that you are able to follow the minimum viable product in place. So the requirements that would come in, so if those do not follow in MVP, probably you can always convince the stakeholders, saying that okay, we can add it. Since it's agile, of course you would have staggered releases. It's not going to be a one big bang release and you're pushing the product right out there. So you can always convince the stakeholders, saying that we can push it in the next phase, or we can just take it in the next iterative sprint as well. So that is something that can be basically worked upon in terms of changes.
Dinap, would you like to add anything here?
I think Ipsita has rightly covered from the business scenarios, like if there is any compliance or regulatory requirement, and obviously that work would be much more prioritized. But I would like to point out from a development team's perspective. So there are certain story points which are attached to a particular sprint, right? And that particular story point, so there is an average which is calculated from the past three previous sprints or maybe five previous sprints. That okay, this is the average, and this is the average of story points which the team has been delivering. And based on this particular average, we will calculate these many stories which we can pick for this particular sprint. So I think that particular average which has been calculated for that team size is very important in picking up the work which comes as a change. Obviously, then again, it has to go hand in hand with the kind of requirements changes which are there. But if it is not related to any compliance or any something which can be pushed on, it boils down to the capacity of the team which the team can handle. So if they've already picked up less story points, then definitely they can keep on adding more story points till the capacity is fulfilled for that particular sprint.
Okay. So just extending this question, uh, so changes is one part of it. Obviously, the agile has been designed in such a way that we accept changes. But what about the end date? None of the customers will agree to not having an end date and saying, okay, let's keep doing iterations and we'll see when it finishes or when we are able to develop the complete scope of work. So, how is that balance maintained in an agile project? Balance in terms of number of changes being accepted versus the end date finalization beforehand, because that has to happen before the start of the project, literally.
Right. So, just to get onto this. So basically, once when you understand the product that you're dealing with, so of course, as a business analyst, the main important thing is to prioritize the features. Because, for example, I don't have anything in hand. I'm building a feature for a product from the scratch. So I need to prioritize that in terms of the features which is required. So probably again the MVP comes into picture. I would release the MVP first, get my customer feedback, so get the end user feedback basically, and then build upon the next phase. So that is what would be a typical agile flow for me. And of course, when I plan the MVP, that would again be, that would definitely have a timeline, because this is probably, if it is a product that you're launching on a company business perspective, you might have to market it, you might have to have some advertising bits, etc. on that. So you definitely need to have a MVP timeline for sure. So that shouldn't be too long, because the typical features for MVP that you're building upon. So on a very basic example I want to quote here is like, if I'm building a website or building an app, a mobile app for a shopping cart or a e-commerce site. So the basic features that I would add is a list of products, probably a listing where I can see the list of products. I add it in a cart and I'm able to successfully check out and do my payment. That's it. Probably in the next phase I can think of categorizing it based on prices, categorizing it based on color. So that things would come into the next phase, probably phase 2 or 1.1, whatever you might call it. But focusing on the MVP is very important in terms of agile. That's what I feel. And my end date has to revolve around that MVP when I'm doing my first release. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a different perspective to that. It basically depends to what is the maturity level of the product in the market. If it's a fairly stable product, then the completion date of the features or the functionalities depends on the product manager and the product life cycle, right? What is the life cycle? What is the stage of the product in which life cycle it is operating, right? But then again, there are some scenarios where we would like to, where the marketing or the sales team is driving some particular product or they are driving some promotions or discount. Then they would like to add on to that those particular features. For example, so Diwali is around the corner, right? So if there are certain applications which would like to cash in on Diwali with the existing scenario of COVID already in place, then the promotions will roll out accordingly. But then again, agreeing with Ipsita also that the MVP has to be there, and then you can keep on adding in. So you build a base feature set which can be added, and you can meet the Diwali timelines. And then if there is something else, you can release it later on.
Okay. Just a follow-up question. In your experience, how flexible, like for example, the customers expect you to be flexible on the changes and having different updates on the features part. How flexible have been customers on the end dates? What's your experience?
So I think I have I've had the good fortune of meeting both ends of extremities, where the customers have uh, been very flexible, and they have been really understanding, and they understand, okay, that this is an impediment which cannot be met easily, and it will take its own sweet course of time, maybe another 3-4 sprints, and they cannot release the product at all. And they had to go to the pain of actually delaying their product launches and the marketing campaigns based on whatever scenario occurred. But then again, I have had customers which have uh, really fought on SLAs, and penalties have been issued to the development company, where the product was supposed to launch, and they ended up losing some sort of business as well. So it really depends on the kind of rapport you have with the client. Plus, it depends on the challenge which has been encountered. So if it is a big problem, then it is kind of a big mess, right? Then the client doesn't understand at all. So it's a mix and match basically. Sometimes the customers are flexible, but sometimes they are not. So it depends on the problem as well. If it's a small issue, it can be resolved, then they are okay. But if it's a big issue, if you missed out on a requirement which was not defined at all, like it was not defined clearly, then it's a issue for everyone.
Ipsita, what has been your experience?
I completely agree with Dilap, because in this case is where your negotiation skill as a business analyst would come into picture. So probably you'll need to negotiate with your stakeholders on if they are stuck with the stringent timelines, or probably they want the release to happen on that particular day. So that depends on how you're trying to, the rapport that you have, that is again very important, and the bonding that you share with your customer, and how well you're able to negotiate that, of course, plays a very important role in that sense. So probably you can negotiate a big feature in terms of something else, and say that, okay, for this release, let's go ahead with this, a feature X, and then probably I'll take that up in the next phase or whatever. So that bonding again is very important, and of course transparency. So that here again, the typical business analyst role comes into picture, because the business analyst is the closest to the stakeholders or the customers. Because while getting the requirements, you are the one who's daily talking to the customers, different stakeholders, writing down things. So the amount of transparency that you maintain and the bonding that you have will actually pay off in the long run when the project is in its development state. So that really helps on a very practical sense as well.
It's been really fascinating talking to you people with your insights. One last question. A lot of people here are aspirants, and they become an agile business analyst. So, what's your three top factors to be successful as an agile business analyst?
So three top success factors to be a agile business analyst. I think you first of all, you need to be a good communicator. So when I say communicator, it you need to have really good listening skills, and you need to focus on selective listening. Like you hear everything, but you need to absorb what is the important key points. Then, secondly, as Ipshita just now mentioned, I think transparency is very important. If you are going to try and take your customer for a ride, eventually, one day or the other, he's going to find out that, okay, this is what was happening. There is going to be some competitor who is going to come back, offer him a big discount, and he's going to take the entire project away. So I think transparency, rapport building are two very important points for a agile business analyst. And then again, you need to have the understanding of what the product what is the product built for, what is the value which is being added to the organization, to the stakeholders, and what is the need of the end customer. I think that is another very important point to understand. What does the customer want? Is he looking for this particular feature? So if we talk about a normal product, for example, like a mobile phone, which could be of any particular company, I think maybe not even 1%, not even 1% customers would actually bother if the calculator application is not working in a mobile, right? But if you're having problems with answering phone calls or sending out text messages, then I think that is a very big feature which got missed out, right? So it depends on how you understand the product as well. So I think these are the key qualities which are required for a good business analyst.
Good points.
Yeah, just to add on to Dinap as well. So what he rightly said is like empathizing with the customer is very important, because unless and until you're able to empathize with the customer, you'll never be able to provide them an optimal solution. So that is very important. And also one more thing I want to highlight here is, since it's agile and probably we work with many kinds of customers, so it is not always possible that we have the domain knowledge of everything as business analysts, of course. So getting us updated with the domain knowledge as well as any ongoing trends that is probably new in the market. So individually as business analysts, we need to upgrade ourselves as well in the terms of technology. I'm not talking that okay, we should know how to code, not that, but what is in the market. Probably if it is a mobile app that you're developing, what would be a typical way of dealing with it? What are the different languages available? How performance wise, how does it help? So these things will eventually help you to basically, of course, gain the customer's confidence as well, because if you give a very high performing thing to a customer, they definitely will be happy about it. And of course, individually as well, there is a learning curve involved. And the other bit is probably, to have a successful agile team, it is very important that we collaborate with the team, that we are the development team, as well as with the stakeholders. So stakeholders collaboration is anyways important, but also to ensure that the team understands each and every bit of the functionality. And also, since it is agile, so it's just not the user story that a particular team or a particular individual in my team should be focused on. They should also be able to visualize the end goal, because they are the one who will be developing the feature. So business analysts will not sit and do the coding, but it's the team who will be doing it. So they, unless and until the team is able to see the end goal, what is the end vision of the customer, it becomes very difficult to succeed as a agile team itself. I feel.
Right. Yeah, right. So basically, 6 things which you people have mentioned, just to list it for everyone: communication skills, understanding the value which the customer is looking at, the empathizing with the customer's cause, upgrading yourselves so that you're always up to date with what's happening, and the ability to also convince the team as to what is required and why it is required. Basically, conveying the value of the customer to the team as well. Did I miss anything? I think I listed 5. One possibly I missed.
Good listener, I think that's what Dinap said.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Active listening and good listener is a good quality for every business owner. Absolutely. It's been fascinating talking to you both. So I have finished all my questions. All right. Great. Dinap, Ipsita, thank you so much for being part of this talk.
Thank
It's
you.
great talking to you both. And thank you everyone for participating today. It was a great interactive session. Thanks all. See you then. Bye-bye.